So we are still in session. No public to be heard?
Correct.
So it's my turn. Good news. All right, from Karen Wood from the high school, the cast and crew of Footloose the Musical and BHS has started work preparing another great production. Kudos to everyone who is putting in a ton of work to bring the fantastic musical to life on our stage. Set building, costuming, choreography, props, posters, and ticketing processes are all underway. BHS Production Club is excited to present this show on March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, which is this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Tickets go on sale at www.showtix4u.com. Search BHS starting February 15th. From the middle school, from Chris Cummings and Charles Voorhees. The high school principal, or the HS principals of engineering course recently took a trip to Chapin International right here in Batavia. The students were able to see local opportunities in manufacturing, robotics, and engineering. The feedback Mr. Voorhees received from his students was very positive, and students were excited to see somewhere local they could use the skills they are practicing every day in class. From John Kennedy, Shelley Zinni, a huge thank you to the JK8s. You are all always so helpful to the nutritional team. National Hot Cocoa Day was a success because of all of your help. We appreciate all of you. Let's see here. From Robert Morris, Krista Lawton, two huge shout-outs to Anne-Marie Kukitis and Marie Bigsby for leading our kindergarten and first grade teams in our professional development on Monday at PLCs. Thank you to Amanda Thomas and Tina Ditzel for helping to create the best Winter Olympics for our littlest students here in Batavia. And finally, thank you to our mental health staff, Lisa, Karina, Greg, for being such a huge support to us. We really have such a great team here. Then from the district, Molly Corey, the four principals, Maureen Notaro, Paul Kessler, Nate Corzelius, and Jenny West, led a very successful January conference day moving the PLC initiative forward with staff. They collaborated together and developed responsive plans for what their schools needed. And then some other good news, other than what's already on our page. And our girls track team, want to congratulate them. Our girls track, indoor track team, winning their 18th sectional championship. And then big congratulations goes out to Casper Stewart for our Attica Batavia wrestling team. Over the weekend, he won the Division II New York State Public High School Athletic Association 145-pound championship in Albany this past weekend, which is a great accomplishment for an individual. So that's it. There's plenty more good news on the website, so please get the opportunity, go and read that. Next up, Community Schools Update, Ms. Julia Rogers.
Hello.
Hi, Julia, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for the opportunity for me to be able to update you on what we've been doing with community schools.
That's me.
Oh, okay. As you will see in this presentation, our vision and mission are great summaries of the work we continue to do. The community school strategy is not a program. It focuses on involvement of the schools, the families, and the community of Batavia to propel our students forward. As a strategy, we assist with all areas of the district, including within our strategic plan. We work with 4 pillars in community schools, as you can see in blue, and our strategic plan elements are below them and align to the work we do in community schools and throughout the district. With everyone working together, we can make transformative changes. We can build strong, trusting relationships, engage in inclusive decision-making, and create a thriving community. With this, we can promote optimal whole child conditions for development and learning that will allow students to flourish through our continuous improvements. As part of our full-service community schools grant, we are working on many different activities, all of which are focused on breaking down the barriers for our students and families. The goal of the project is to implement full-service community schools at all Batavia City School District schools, and they will improve the coordination, integration, accessibility, and effectiveness of services for children and families to increase student achievement and student, family, and community wellness. We now have started a newsletter for parents on Parent Square to give them various pieces of information, such as upcoming events, flyers, resources, and more. Schools work on family engagement on a daily basis. Through community schools, we provide opportunities to generate ideas to get others in our community involved. As you know of, our community closet has changed its name to the Heart of Kindness Center. We carry food, clothing, hygiene products, household items, and more. Our focus is on student success. So whatever students and their families need to help them achieve in school, we help with. And it's from the age of 0 to post-high school. We are a triage setting. We help and also look to refer families to organizations in our community that can help them more expansively than we can. We continue to have volunteers from the Office of the Aging's RSVP program, which is the Retired Seniors Volunteer Program. We have students and community members who assist us, including the ARC. We receive donations, such as you can see here, of twin beds, sheets, toys, and winter coats. From the entire community who donates to us, including students, local agencies, staff, foundations, businesses, and local organizations, as well as individuals within our community. Donations are being limited, though, due to storage. So now we have created a monthly needs list. For instance, this month we need sweats and leggings for children of all ages and sizes. We ask families to complete a needs assessment when they visit our center, and we encourage them to donate items that they don't use anymore to help become a contributing member of the center. Our aide, Jessica, facilitates the volunteers, donations, and organization of the Heart of Kindness Center. She is the familiar face to those who visit and is always brainstorming opportunities to help families and students. Since March of 2023, we have assisted 211 households, and an additional 43 have utilized the Heart of Kindness Center more than once. This represents 538 children ages 0 to 20. Our Fall Expo and Coat Giveaway continues to grow. This year we had 70 families attend who were able to visit the Heart of Kindness Center, the Family and Community Engagement Center, and many agencies and organizations in our community whose goals were to be a resource to our families. We also served a favorite meal, traveling tacos. Our Family and Community Engagement Center is starting to be used more often. We are holding programs that teach empowerment skills and information sessions. We have had Creative Communities Wellness Expo, where we combined health and art. The Face was the location of the Teddy Bear Clinic. We had 45 families visit this year for the event, and the numbers were down, and the committee members felt that we could advertise a little bit more for the events, which we will do this year. We also arranged buses for the Fall Expo and the Wellness Expo, and we've cut down on the buses we have used due to lack of numbers. However, those who did use the buses were very appreciative of it. It used to be Warm the Night, our Fall Expo, and it was the one big time when we gave away winter coats, boots, hats, and mittens. We are still serving the same number of families, as you could see with the numbers I mentioned about the Heart of Kindness. But what was wonderful this year is families had access to the donated coats from September on. So as the weather changed, people were more prepared. More people working with our community partners occurred. For instance, one partner mentioned that they needed to make sure they had a Spanish speaker from their organization with them at all our events to help with the communication barrier for our bilingual families. Again, breaking down the barriers for our families. We have provided transportation, but as I mentioned, very few take us up on the offer. We're going to try and become more creative with our advertising for our events so that families can connect with our local agencies. In 2023, we joined with Genesee County's Suicide Prevention Coalition, and our wellness activity, our expo, became the Creative Communities Wellness Expo to celebrate the opportunities of the arts to help one's mental health. We had an eye screening by the Lions Club, a teddy bear clinic, and a local artist, Linda Fix, to help teach children and families how to paint for enjoyment. Again, people did not take the opportunity for transportation, but we did provide food vouchers for the Just Kings event later that day. The Lions Club screened for vision needs, and there were a number of referrals to local services and local agencies. A parent came also and asked for assistance for her child and herself from an agency that was there. Afterwards, the agency member said, even though we didn't have a lot of people, we should be happy for the turnout and that we held the event. She stated that the fact that one mom that she spoke with who needed help for her child who was having suicidal ideations the night before was worth every moment because the mom knew she could come and get help, and the person from this agency got on the phone and was able to hook her up with assistance. Educational programming for adult family members will be an opportunity that we will include as part of our goals for this year. Integrated student supports lend itself to recognizing and knowing the many resources we have available to us in the community. We believe that the supports need to be all-encompassing for families, for individual families, meaning adult family members, their children, and the family unit itself. The strength we have as a district, thanks to our U.S. Department of Education grant for full-service community schools, allows us to have social workers in each building assisting and building those relationships. We are all learning about something new in our community each day. Our goal is to help improve the whole child and their family in their health and well-being in this community. Also, the research-based collaboration arts, which you have seen before, centers around the core domains of human development, including social emotional learning. This process helps us understand the children's needs as a whole: relationships, self-regulation, competence, and health and well-being. We began identifying strengths and challenges. Then, through our community schools work with our district staff, we are developing and/or expanding intentional best practices for trauma-informed purpose. Our hope is that community schools, in conjunction with our social workers, expand our role to be more supportive of prevention and promotion opportunities through the MTSS process in each school. Currently, Jessica, our aide, who I had mentioned, transports students to the Genesee County Mental Health Satellite Office at Robert Morris on Thursdays, so that students don't miss school for a full day if they have an appointment. This is about 43 students a month that utilize the satellite office. We also have Horizons in the schools, and they see students also. Care Solace is available for any student, their family member, and any staff member. It's a service that helps find a mental health provider and saves time by doing all the legwork for you. Information has been sent out through Parent Square as part of our community newsletter. Again, our goals are focused on student health: physical, mental, emotional, you describe it, dental. It's all about the student's health, and we are trying to assist. The expanded and enriched learning time and opportunities is an umbrella, if you will, for all the district-wide after-school and weekend programming. We are working with our community to build real-life experiences for our students. Batavia Tech Club hosts evening and weekend classes for students at Robert Morris. This opportunity allows students who love STEM, technology, and creativity to continue their learning as part of the work. Jim Dillon is the coach, and he runs the classes like you would maybe see on a field, as 8U, 10U, etc. And since January 18th, students have participated in this activity, and we hope to have a class almost every night for students in the upcoming months. Now, as you've probably heard in the news, there's going to be a total eclipse in April. We have 20 members of our total eclipse planning committee from various buildings in the district. Batavia is in the path of totality, and we've worked with the Genesee County Chamber of Commerce's committee, and they are donating safe solar viewing glasses for all Batavia City School District students. We will be sending these home before spring break so families have them, because as you know, it's not safe to look directly at the sun during this time. And again, we want to protect children, we want to help their health, so we want to try to avoid severe eye injury. Our schools are planning fun events, such as art contest, STEAM lessons, science classroom activities, and even reading Jenny Sees the Eclipse, which was donated to every library in our district by the Chamber. And there may be various Jenny visits of Jenny the cow with her glasses from the Chamber of Commerce at upcoming events. All of our goals support students and their various needs. We are looking to expand our work through trainings for staff, including our community partners involved in classroom lessons, and expand our advisory board, subcommittee members, and programming to honor our diverse school and local community. As you have heard, we are working to build a better Batavia and uniting the community and the schools together. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Think we're okay?
Thank you, Julia.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you very much.
Next up would be our preliminary 2024-2025 budget overview, Mr. Andrew Hall.
Thank you. Next, right? So today's agenda, we're going to be looking at the 2024-25 budget calendar, some budget considerations for 24-25. Now, these are going to be some factors that are going to be main drivers for next year's budget. We're going to briefly look at an enrollment projection. We're going to look at projected revenues. Projected revenues are all the funds that the district might anticipate to receive next year. And then a rollover projection of expenditures for next year as well. And then finally is just some next steps in the budget processes as we move forward. So real briefly, the budget calendar. Again, today we're going to look at a preliminary budget overview. March 12th, we'll have a more specific budget work session, which will dive into more details of next year's budget. 14th, there'll be an alternate if needed. And then on the 25th, the BOE will continue to review the budget. Budget adoption occurs on the 22nd. The budget hearing will occur on May 14th. And then finally, day before my birthday, May 21st is the budget vote for this year. So some of the big considerations for next year's budget, and I'm sure this is not much new information for you at this point, but COVID-19 grant funds, which the district had been receiving for the past several years, will be ending September of 2024 to the tune of $5.8 million. That's how much allocated towards the Batavia City School District. Another factor, State Aid Foundation, again, another thing that has kind of been prevalent this year in the news in regards to state aid. We're actually going to see a slight decrease in foundation aid, which impacts overall state aid, one of our major revenue sources in our district's budget.
So just to clarify one point, that's what has been proposed now by our governor. So once the budget is adopted by the state, that number could, either go up, down, or stay the same. So that second bullet is what we're working with right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the governor's proposed budget at this time. Transportation costs, the district did bid out our transportation services for next year. That resulted in an increase of cost to the district. And then we have our standard fixed costs, salaries, debt service, health insurance, retirement, all those items. One thing that we want to look at in next year's budget and moving forward, the sustainability of appropriating and allocating fund balance and reserves. So using those savings accounts, reserves, and appropriated fund balance to balance the district's budget. That's something we need to consider moving forward in the budget process. Maximum allowable tax levy calculation, this is that tax cap. So that impacts the district's tax levy. It's a calculated amount, how much we can increase the levy. So that's another thing that's going to be impacting the budget. And then finally, our enrollment projection, just something to consider as we go through the budget process. So just briefly, this is a quick enrollment projection. This shows past and future projected amounts. This is based on what's called the cohort survival projection method. So we look at the previous year's classes from year to year, and we calculate how much those change from year to year, and then project that moving forward. So as you can see, just uniquely, there's a slight dip during those several years during COVID-19, but it came back up, and then it will, it's projected trend line as it has been in the previous 10 or 5 years to continue to kind of slowly decline. Looking at some projected revenue for next year, there's 4 really main sources of revenue that the district realizes. State sources in the form of state aid, real property taxes in the form of a tax levy, appropriated fund balance and reserves. This is the amount of our savings accounts and reserves accounts that we allocate to offset any shortfall in the revenue. And then all other local revenue. This is revenue like Medicaid reimbursement, smaller amounts that we kind of bundle all together. So in total, you can see a slight reduction in revenue of about $94,000. The most of it attributed to state aid, and we'll kind of dive into that a little bit closer in a subsequent slide. So again, looking at budget to budget, so this is state aid. These are the major categories of state aid that the district receives. As you can see, the biggest change from the amount that was budgeted for the 23-24 school year to the amount budgeted in the 24-25 school year, from what we can tell right now from the governor's run, is a significant decrease in the amount of foundation aid. Now, when we compare it to actual versus budgeted, that amount is much less. That's just because the amount that was budgeted for in the 23-24 school year was a little overinflated. So that's why there's a correction for next year. But again, all of the revenue sources remain steady or else a slight decrease. But again, the biggest factor is the foundation.
So just one point, and going down like from transportation on down, I think almost all those are expense-based aids. So in other words, we expend the funds on transportation, we then get reimbursed the following year at an aid ratio. So BOCES aid, when we send a child to BOCES, that costs X amount of dollars, we then get reimbursed the following year. So those bottom several there are basically categorized as expense-based aids. We expend the funds and then the aid comes.
Yep, absolutely, yep. So this slide shows the actual 23-24 amounts of state aid versus the 24-25 budgeted. So as you can see, the amount of foundation was corrected, but again, based on the initial projections for foundation aid that were received from the governor, a decrease of about $14,000 in foundation aid. Foundation aid is our would be considered a general operating aid, general formula aid. That is not expense driven, that's based on formula. So again, some key points about state aid. Again, in 22-23 and 23-24, the governor did fully fund the foundation aid formula, which was great for a lot of districts, including Batavia. But in 24-25, there's 2 new provisions that were proposed by the governor to eliminate the safe harmless provision and eliminate an inflationary adjustment and modify those 2 functions of the formula, that's what most districts are seeing, those reductions.
So just if you could explain safe harmless?
Yeah, safe harmless is a provision that would guarantee districts to have a certain percentage increase per year of foundation aid. So this basically says that, districts are held to the formula without any sort of safe harmless clause.
So it's just like 2 items to mention here. Can you go back to the couple slides ago, Andy? So right now as it stands, so you saw Andy mention that the safe harmless piece is gone. So we're having a reduction there of about $13,000, almost $14,000, right? So that, and then go to the next slide. And then that's the second bullet. So that is how the safe harmless looks for us. So had safe harmless not been eliminated, that number that I just showed you that went down should and would have gone up.
Yeah, there would have been an adjustment to foundation aid, correct for So moving forward, looking at the tax levy, which is another major source of revenue for the district, part of the tax levy is we have to calculate the maximum allowable tax levy, increase the tax cap amount. So I'm not going to go in depth on this calculation, but this is the calculation for the tax cap. I just want to point out there's two factors that really the district has very little control over that actually count fairly large in the tax levy, maximum allowable tax levy calculation, is the tax-based growth factor and the allowable levy growth factor. So those are two components that the district receives and we just plug into this calculation. So we start off with the previous year's tax levy, which is $19,888,000. And then we apply all these factors moving forward. And then we apply exclusions. The district is able to exclude certain items as part of this tax cap calculation. One of those being the capital levy, one of those being ERS contributions greater than 2%. So again, those are all factored into this calculation. The bottom line is the district can levy up to $20,032,594. And that represents a 0.72% increase in the tax levy, which is about $143,000.
So if the board wants to go higher, say the board wants to go 0.75, what has to happen then?
The district would have to seek a supermajority.
Which is 6%.
Correct. Again, just some historical factors that I thought was, really beneficial to have. This shows the actual tax levy compared to the tax cap, and basically the thing to really focus on are these two columns, the tax cap and the actual tax levy. So as you can see, in a lot of these years, our tax cap was, for example, 4%, and the tax levy increase was actually 0. So if you factor that and compound the difference, and then add for each of the years that was forfeited, this is the total amount that technically could have been levied throughout those number of years that the district, did not increase the levy as a result of. This again shows a little bit of a tax levy history. So as you can see here, you can look at the averages down here. The 3-year average tax levy increase was $179,000. The 5-year tax levy increase was $106,000. So just again, some historical factors that you can certainly look at, and then finally, this is a third kind of tax rate history. This is in regards to the tax rate. So again, you can look at the dollar change in tax rate and the percent change in tax rate. So if you look at the average again, our 3-year average dollar change in tax rate actually decreased by $1.01. And then one other thing to point out, I did estimate the 24-25 tax levy based on going out at the current tax cap, the 0.72% increase. And as you can see, I'm projecting it to go up about 12.5%. All factors remaining the same, assessed values and equalization rates. So again, just a projection, definitely could change, once those assessments and equalization rates are released. But again, it's just based on some historical factors. Okay?
Yep.
The third source of revenue that we're going to look at is the appropriated fund balance. And again, this is the amount that we basically take out of our savings and appropriate and designate for next year's shortfall in revenue. So historically, we've been between 2-3% here, but as you can see in previous years, it's been as high as 4.7% of which is generally a higher amount of appropriated fund balance. But again, that's used to offset any shortfall in revenue or gap between revenue and expenditure.
And is there a recommended percentage that you like to see, or in the past, or just from your own experience?
I would say, I would say generally around 2 or 3% would be the maximum that you would want to appropriate. And again, it's just there as a potential use in the event that revenue comes in less than anticipated. So you're not putting yourself, the district, in a deficit situation. And then reserves. So this is just a chart that shows the actual reserve levels as of 6/30/2023. And then some transfers in and outs that have occurred as a result of year-end transfers. We have a capital project referendum vote that was approved, so the district moved funds from its capital reserve. And then budgeted use for 23-24. These are the amounts that we said we were going to use for this year to offset operating costs out of our reserves. And then this is just the end balance, applying all of those changes to the reserves as we move forward. So again, this is just a projection as of 6/30/2024, but again, $20.5 million at the start, and then $12.5 million projected as of 6/30/2024. There's no additions to that put in there as a result of excess fund balance. But again, this is just a projection, just for your use and for your
So where do
reference.
the additions normally come from?
They usually come from excess appropriations and excess revenue at the end of the year. So it comes from unassigned fund balance when we close, after we close the books. So we make those transfers into reserves, generally right around June or July, historically, that I've done in the past, but again. All right, so local revenue sources. Again, these are all of those smaller revenue sources that we kind of categorize together as local revenue sources. And again, minor changes to that, but adjusting based on previous years, how much we've actually received in previous years, and then averaging those together is how I've come up with the projections for 24-25. So a minor decrease in overall in local revenues when looking at 23-24 to 24-25. A lot of those are just based on historical amounts that we've actually received and the averages. All right, so the other side of the revenue, the other side of the budget from revenue is expenditures. So let's kind of look at that. So overall, we're looking at an increase of just over $3 million, or 5.23% year to year. And these are just six main categories of the budget, and we'll dive into each of those.
So I want to point one thing out. This is assuming we keep, this is so, the magic word in this whole slide is the word rollover. So it's assuming everything looks as it, next year as it does now, essentially.
Correct, remains
Right.
unchanged. Yeah, we've taken the existing staffing, programming, everything, and rolled it forward for next year. One thing to note, you'll see this little footnote here, and you'll see this throughout the budget process, is because we did award a contract for transportation services, we do have to include this footnote throughout the whole budget process, just to make sure that the public is aware and that they are authorizing us to enter into that multi-year contract with our transportation provider. So some of the things, as Mr. Smith indicated, are included in the rollover budget. 7 FTE long-term substitutes. It's important to note that these were all funded through COVID-19. Again, those grant funds. 5 social workers funded through full-service community schools. 5 instructional staff retirement replacements. So we do have retirements. This budget includes replacing them all, and also calculating the breakage as a result. All departmental requests for equipment and supplies. 2 school resource officers. One of those is currently funded through American Rescue Plan or COVID funds. School supplies for all students, which was new this year, has been carried forward to next year. Again, transportation cost increase as a result of a new contract. Salary increases in accordance with collective bargaining agreements and individual contracts. And then projected employer contributions for both ERS and TRS. ERS is the employee retirement system, and TRS is the teacher's retirement system.
Offhand, do you know what those rates are? If you don't, that's fine.
I believe it's going up TRS is going up from 9.76% up to potentially over 10%. And then ERS it's dependent on tiers, but they are all adjusting, usually I think between 1 and 1.3% generally. So it depends on what tier they're. Okay. Okay, so looking at general support. So general support includes all of these categories of the district's budget. And again, general support's looking at increasing 7.8%, or around $505,000. A lot of that is we did recategorize BOCES services. So we did have some BOCES services that needed to be recategorized up into the administrative portion of the budget. And so that's why you're seeing a fairly large increase year to year in the general support. Instructional summary. Again, this is the largest portion of the district's budget, as it should, for education, and obviously instruction should be the largest component. So a change of about $1.3 million, again, that's mostly attributed to salaries. Looking at transportation and employee benefits, again, we're looking at a significant increase in transportation year to year as a result of bidding. So we did have a 5-year contract, and going out to bid, obviously with the amount of inflation that's been going on in the past 5 years, it's anticipated that you would see an adjustment like that. So again, about 20% increase in transportation year to year. Employee benefits, again, a lot of these are driven by salaries. But again, a year-to-year difference of about 5.26% or $657,000. Debt service. Debt service is the district's basically mortgage payment for its outstanding debt attributed to capital projects. So we have an amortization schedule, so we just basically use these figures and amounts to estimate the total principal and interest for the following year. And then some transfer to special aid and capital. The $100,000 is the authorization to transfer the $100,000 from the general fund to the capital fund for those annual capital outlay projects. Again, those are aidable. So overall, we can start with the expenditure portion at the top. Again, we had a 5.23% increase year to year. And then revenue, we had a decrease of about 0.16%. So when you compare total expenditures to total revenue, our current gap is just about $3.1 million. So again, I guess the question would be moving forward, what are kind of our next steps? So there's really two major options that we can do as administrative and as board to really close that gap. One of those is to increase revenue. One of the options is to look at the appropriation of additional fund balance and reserves. Increase the tax levy, which we already talked about, and we are against that tax levy cap. And then obviously continue to lobby for additional state aid. Certainly would be beneficial. On the other side, you could decrease expenses, and that you could look at reduction through attrition, or really closely looking at those initiatives and positions that were funded through the COVID grants.
So Andy,
Yeah.
with that reduction of the foundation aid, if that is increased with the governor's budget to, I guess, the normal rate, how much of that would be making up that 3.1?
It's hard to say because I don't know how that would change. But to be honest, if we were, I think, Mr. Smith, what was NISCUS's amount that they had projected in that spreadsheet?
I can't remember offhand.
Yeah, it's not an exorbitant amount, maybe $250,000 to $300,000 from what I recall.
Okay.
If we were technically to be held harmless.
Okay.
I can get you a better answer on that. I mean, I have to go, I have some projections, sorry, Allison. I have some projections from another source. I wasn't prepared for this question tonight, but I can get it back to you. But that's nothing official that I have.
No. Again, what we're working with right now is what has been actually proposed by the governor.
Okay.
In this budget, have you figured in if we decide to keep the grant-funded positions?
Correct. Those are included in this rollover budget, correct. Yep.
So go back to like, the slide I want, that shows all the things in
Sure.
there. So, yeah, Allison, the answer to your question is yes. All these pieces are in here, including the second slide, which is things like our school supplies that we did last year, transportation. We have no control of transportation really, but the first slide, Andy just showed, those factors are in there. That's where, if you decide to give us that flexibility, we have that flexibility to make some decisions around those pieces.
But we also have flexibility on transportation, do we not?
Yeah.
If we cut busing, cut certain parts of busing. I mean, this is just the way it is for now, all the busing that we provide now.
We have a contract with them, don't we?
Yeah, we have a contract
Yeah.
based on needs, correct. Yeah.
But because busing or transportation is non-mandated, it's one of the subjects that can be changed, can it not?
It can be. I don't know if I'd recommend that right now. I hadn't thought about that. I would need more time to think that through.
Mhm.
I know we'll have to see how tight we are with the contract that we have with them now. We may not be able to, but it's something we can look at. We can come back to that with some more information.
I just know that there are some non-mandated things
Right.
that we can look at if we're looking, instead of going to the reserves to,
Right.
you know, put the money into the budget, you know, there are other things that we can do, because we've had, from my experience living here my whole life, changed transportation quite a bit.
Right.
You know.
So last year we did add, I think we added 6 or 7 bus, which now, you know, I will say that extra bus at each of the high school and the middle school, Tricia Miller can attest to this, has been well received
Oh, sure.
by both by parents and by our school, or by our staff.
Sure, when the
Yeah.
school district takes over transportation and parents are responsible for getting their kids. to
Not so much,
school.
no, I'm not being clear on that, sorry. What I mean is that we're able, each school has their own bus. So we've always bused kids, so each school now has their own bus, so that has helped with some of the arrival procedure, dismissal procedures before and after school. So your point is still valid, but what I was trying to say is that when we added that bus, it gave us dedicated bus runs for the high school and for the middle school.
Any other questions?
So we'll go back to the options, please. So we have the workshop coming up on March 12th. We saw the gap as it stands now is $3.5 million. The tax levy, we're limited to 0.72 unless you want to go over that. I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend that we you consider going to the cap. It's small, it's 0.72. Not to discount that it's still a tax increase, but it is 0.72. Those are the options. So we've already internally started having some conversations around these options, but certainly we'd like to take a direction from you if you have any to offer us now. We have the workshop coming up in March. Allison had asked about those grant positions, the other pieces that Andy had on there. Just like to hear some feedback if you have any at this point.
Those grant positions are the ones that Julia was talking about? The
Some of
counselors
them,
over at-
yes. It's
at
the social
community
workers,
schools?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have on here reduction through attrition.
So we have 5 retirees.
Mhm.
One option we would be right now, Andy's factored into having them all replaced.
Yes.
There's some savings when you do that. There's obviously more savings when you don't replace, and then make do with the staff we have. So we have later on, you have an English teacher at the high school, we have a technology teacher at the middle school, we have a reading specialist.
Reading teacher.
We have a reading teacher, we have a physical therapist, which we are recommending that one be replaced, and Mrs. Heights. So we have some options there,
Okay.
as well as those grant positions you have there. Obviously, we can't sustain a $3.5 million gap unless you want to raise taxes or really hit our reserves hard,
Right.
neither of which we're recommending.
I think we're gonna have to look at everything.
Okay?
We have, we got $3 million, we've got to shave off the budget. So, and we need to look at everything in every aspect that we can do to get everything committed down to what it needs to be.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
And I think that you're being very optimistic about lobbying for additional state aid and foundation aid. 'cause-
So I'll tell you what my hunch is,
Yeah.
okay? I've talked to a lot of our local lawmakers. I have a couple theories on this, which are really not that any good, they're just my opinions. My experience has been that although we can't bank on this, my experience has been that the foundation aid will increase. By how much, we don't know. Both sides of the political of the aisle want the numbers to go up,
Mhm.
right? So that's been made clear all across the board. I think those numbers will go up. The problem we have is when. So we're also not optimistic the state budget will be on time. By law, the budget has to be in place by April 1st. What's interesting is a lot of the big 5 school districts like Buffalo, Rochester, their votes are not subject to a public approval. So therefore, those lawmakers that represent those districts, with all due respect, don't have the same sense of urgency that we do here in Batavia and other
Right.
schools, because our votes are subject to a public vote. That being said, I'm not optimistic we're going to have a budget on April 1st, because those in the majority are not really motivated to get it in that time, which is a problem for us here, because Andy showed you the budget calendar. So if by some chance, say the budget is approved, the state budget comes in on May 30th, well, then we have to make some adjustments, possibly some of those, positions we could look at again. Some of those honestly up there are based on enrollment. Molly, Trish, and I have been working hard at our enrollment studies and classroom section and class size. We're diving into all of those as well. We've had some conversations around those. We're going to engage our principals this week on those conversations. So there is some things, that we need to be thinking about. And the other piece I would say too is a lot of the COVID-19, a lot of the phrase we heard around COVID-19 all the time was learning loss, right? So we saw last month or so, our test scores have been competitive. It's been, I'm not excusing the damage that the pandemic caused, but it's been 4 years now, 4 years this March, right? And then, up to 4 years, possibly 3 if you count the year that we were on a hybrid plan. At some point, can we say, has the gap been closed? Yes, we still want to give services to kids, but we've seen some of the nice improvements we've had across the district. We still have more work to do. But we also have to be careful that that amount of almost $6 million, if we absorb that all into the general fund, which is what the plan is now, that may not be the final outcome. That may not be the most fiscally prudent thing to do either. Want to say something?
Any other questions?
So you'd like us to come back and mark with some new recommendations? Yes, Allison and John say yes?
Yeah, I think some important things to keep in mind are those safety things that we put in the second SRO. I think is an important thing
Thank you.
to keep into play for us.
It's helpful.
I know you mentioned, are we closing that gap? Yes. But are we at where we want to be at? No. So I don't want to fall backwards either by eliminating or by reducing that to take away from those services. So I know there's going to be a lot of T's and I's that have to be crossed and dotted, and but I think those are some, keeping those safety things in mind with the SRO and the staffing necessarily. I think, like you mentioned, we're going to save with some of the retirements by hiring some.
Or not replacing.
Well, if we hire new teachers, they're obviously not going to be at the same compensation level as these. So I'd like to see that difference on that as well, whether a new teacher would come in as opposed to just eliminating that position, what that difference would be for us.
I had a thought, I just lost it. Oh, so, yeah, so what we can do in March, the March 12th workshop, is give you some of these recommended, reductions. Obviously, it's all subject to, your approval and the budget approval. Is there any interest, I have to ask, is there any interest in going above the tax cap?
And getting the supermajority?
I'm not necessarily recommending that, but I think we should have that, it's 0.72, we have to get 60%. It's not necessarily a recommendation, I'm just asking.
I wouldn't. Again, that's just my opinion.
I mean, we never want to, but obviously that's got to be an option that we're going to have to look at. I think the district has done very well over the years of staying under and not raising taxes. So at a point like this, it might have to be an option, and that's something that, we would, if it is coming down to it, we're going to have to hopefully get the community support with it. But like John mentioned, I think we got to look at every option at the March meeting.
So what we'll do, as I said, we've been meeting here internally on and off for the past month or so. We'll have some recommendations for you. Obviously, some of those rollover things we'd have to look at again. School supplies, we were able to do that last year for our students. We really have no control over the salary increases with the contracts we currently have in place, same with ERS, TRS. Transportation costs, we do have some control, yes and no. We can't control the cost, but we can control how much we want to transport. Kids can go back one more slide. The rest of this really, except I agree with John about the SRO. But the rest of these pieces we have some flexibility over as well. We can bake them into the general fund. What's the problem with not doing that, Randy, if we just keep them out?
When those grant funds end, then obviously the district, the general fund picks up the full amount for the grant funded position. So, I think if the intent is to continue on with those positions, they should be included in the general fund. And And then during the duration of a grant, they should kind of be taken out of the grant, except not the general fund. So, but they should be retained in the general fund.
Are we looking at other grants that are out there? Are we investigating that? I mean, I can't imagine that there's not any grants. We talk about it every year of different grants being available. Is that something we're still researching?
Yeah, we're always looking, I mean, we're not maxed out, we have a lot going on. We have a lot of grants right now that we're managing, which we're happy to do. We're always looking, yes.
Well, I think we also need to know how much those grants that we've never paid, that have been paid by the government, how much we're
Can
actually
you get us
looking.
for that at
to
the March
put these
workshop?
five journal on? Sure.
Exactly what needs, you have 7 long-term subs funded through there and
Mhm.
all the rest. That it would be interesting to see what that actual dollar amount is for those positions.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. The annual cost for all
Yeah.
those grant funded
Yes.
positions.
Yep.
Correct, yep.
The other thing I would caution us against too, as Andy said, using our reserves and our fund balance more than we should or more than what's recommended. To me, the analogy I give, that's like paying your gas bill every month with your savings account, right? So we know what our fixed expenses are. We shouldn't be totally relying on our reserves and/or fund balance to create those expenses. Yes, we want to use those on occasion, or not on occasion, but like to a degree. But certainly, we want to be thoughtful how much we tap into basically our savings account, to use layman's terms.
Yeah, the damage is becoming reliant on appropriated fund balance and reserves to balance the budget.
And certainly,
Those are finite revenue sources.
if the foundation aid does come through, as I expect it will, and hopeful that it will, we have been lobbying. I have encouraged our staff and community to lobby as well. I hope they still will. But there has been a full court press to get additional funds from the state. I'm optimistic about that. I'm not optimistic that the budget will be in on time, which the state budget. We, of course, by law, have to do certain things at certain times, and it's tough because we're trying to hit a moving, like a target we don't know is there. It's very frustrating.
We got to stick by the law, but
They do what they want.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
the state government doesn't have to.
And really, the folks I've talked to and the source I've talked to, pretty confident that the foundation aid will at least be restored to what it has been, if not higher, hopefully. And then also, again, on the negative side, not likely to have a budget on time from the state. So,
Well, it doesn't make any sense that the governor made us all whole last year, and now they're telling us, no,
Right.
we can't have.
and the other thing I would say too, if there is a desire to phase this in over time, then give us time to plan. So we literally had no time to be thoughtful about this, because it was launched on us when the governor announced her budget a couple months ago. We had no time to plan it. I mean, she may, or the state may have some valid arguments, but at least give us time to thoughtfully plan it through, and then look at what it costs to educate a child. Even though our enrollment has flattened out, in some cases gone down, our expenses have have risen. We obviously have some room there. We have quite a bit of room there with positions. We're looking at conference lines, travel lines, equipment. Those pieces are all subject. School supplies, all these types of things are looking at as well.
But even if that foundation aid comes in, it's a small portion of that 3.1
You're right.
million.
Thank you.
It's also-
Yes.
It's only 300,000 of that 3.
You're right. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
So we still got our work cut out for us.
Yes. Okay?
Any other
All right.
questions?
Thank you,
All right.
Andy.
We'll come back to you in March with more information. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks.
All right, next up is superintendent's report. Mr. Smith?
So I want to echo Mr. Marucci's comments regarding the show this weekend. The BHS Drama Club is doing Footloose. Excited to see that Friday and Saturday at 7 and Sunday at 2. I'm taking the students on the radio with me on Thursday, about 8:30, 8:45. Myself and Mr. Wood will be on WBTA talking about the show. So looking forward to that this weekend. Speaking of that, just a quick update. Our hockey team, the last time I checked, hockey team is up 2-1 after 2 periods. So just as an aside, our hockey team is up 2-1. Up 2-1. So athletics, as John said, girls indoor track came home with the sectional title on Sunday, this past Sunday, their 18th title. Our boys team came in 3rd. We are sending 4 students to state qualifiers. We have 2 throwers, Sheldon Cyberlin and Ava Weirda, and a couple of runners, Cole Grazia playing at Camp O'Reilly, will be going to states in a couple of weeks. I just said hockey's playing right now. Harrison Southall won the sectional title in boys swimming. Girls and boys, our girls basketball team had an especially improved season this year. They finished above 500. They won a sectional game. Our boys team finished just at 500. And of course, the big news: Casper Stewart was here yesterday for his big welcome home reception. Very heartwarming to see the students and staff that came out to see Casper. He represented us very well. He's a humble young man, and we're very proud of all that he's done. Capital project update. We are working through phase 1. Can't say that it's exciting, but we're doing roofs at a couple of schools, so that we are in the design phase of that. That should be taking place next spring is when the work should happen. And we're beginning to engage in phase 2, which is looking at Robert Morris. We have some walkthrough scheduled with the team in May to go through looking at Robert Morris and all of our schools in phase 2 for the part of the project. I want to recognize the BCSD Foundation for hosting the alumni hockey game on February 4th. That was well attended. We raised a lot of funds for our scholarships. And just an invite to the board. I know many of you work, but on March 22nd, it is during the day, we're having our annual Glow with Our Hands, which is a great opportunity for medical careers. We're going to have over 500 students at GCC. This is sponsored by, drawing a blank on the group. Sorry, who's ever listening?
BEA.
BEA, thank you, Julia, by BEA. 500 students and 55 vendors will be there at GCC. There's going to be some career workshops, a medicine in action, career expo, and then lunch with the college reps. So I look forward to attending that with our students. Julia has been working with us on that as well. If you're interested in attending, or if you can't attend, let us know. It really is a great day. It's very similar to the, what's the other one called? Both Your Hands Manufacturing that we have in October at the fairgrounds. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next up is the student ex officios report, Payne Wooler. Unfortunately, Payne could not be here tonight. He is at Footloose rehearsal tonight, and he can't miss any of the rehearsals now.
No, he can't. He got a big part.
It goes on this weekend. So again, March 1st, 2nd at 7 p.m., and then on Sunday the 3rd at 2 p.m., so please get your tickets. Payne has in here, he wants to congratulate Casper Stewart again on being the first ever Batavia wrestler to bring home a state championship. We've had a second and a few thirds, but Casper was the first one to bring home a state title for us. Also, he mentions in here in his report, the hockey team tonight, who was up 2-1. They were playing at RIT. Good luck to them. Moving on to some other school-wide events. They just had their winter pep rally, which went fairly well. They're having some fun events, a 3-point shootout competition against the teachers, tug of war between underclassmen. They also had their snowball. They just had their snowball, which was sold out, 260 tickets. Then also already halfway through the year, it's been crazy, and he's looking forward to getting his diploma here in a few months, as is everybody else. So Payne, we're looking forward to having you come back next month. Next up, it would be the consent grouping. I need a motion to approve the grouping of consent items.
So moved.
Mr. Regal, can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good.
Next up is old business. And need a motion for resolution for the 2020 bond anticipation note and amendment to the 2023-24 budget. Is there any discussion? Does anybody have anything? All right, could I have a motion? Ms. Bowman had that.
So
I'm sorry.
moved.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Regal.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right, number 2, BCSD Reimagine Capital Improvement Projects Bond Resolution and estoppel notice. Any discussion on that? Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Regal, could I have a second?
Aye.
Mr. Roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Kind of thought Ches would be a little bit more excited since
Okay.
he won the Super Bowl. Then on to new business, approve the 2024-2025 BCSD school calendar. Any questions?
Can we point out that we did change the late arrival to this?
Yes. Yeah, so,
Let's just make sure we point that out.
Yeah, so the late arrival days are recommended to be eliminated. We've had them for the past couple of years. We're going to make some adjustments within our school day to better accommodate for those needs. That's one change. The second update is really not changed, but we're going to go back to having 2 days of staff to open up the school year in September. That will give us more flexibility to have the, what's that group called? The freshman orientation? Link crew back, so that will give us some opportunity there. So we have 2 full days of school. We'll start the Thursday after Labor Day, and there's really nothing outside of the norm there. There are 2 weeks of Christmas time, and then, as John mentioned, the late arrival days are being recommended to not exist anymore.
Okay. Anything else? All right, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Riegel. Second? Ms. Bowman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right, approve the 10 and 12-month employee paid holiday schedule for 2024-2025. Any questions? If none, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Benedict? Second.
Second.
Mr. Riegel.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right, number 3, approval of annual district election voter registration. Any questions? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Riegel, can I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Bowman?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
2024 election nominations to the Board of Genesee Valley BOCES. Any discussion? Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Riegel, second.
Second.
Ms. Bennett?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Close-up trip to Washington D.C. from the 17th of March through the 22nd of March. Any discussion?
This is the same.
Questions?
This is the trip from last year.
Trip from last year,
Yeah.
yeah. That was a great trip for them.
Yes.
So, sorry.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Riegel, second.
Second.
Mr. Roll.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right, on to discussions. Discussion on trips relative to the BCSD policy and regulations.
It's just something to point out to you. We don't have to make a decision on this now, but I want to make sure that our actions are consistent with what our policy are. So our policy currently recommends, or currently calls for the board only having to approve international trips, which you just did this past winter, the group of kids going to Europe in the summertime. The policy as it stands now does not, require you to approve anything within the U.S. Not saying that you should or shouldn't. It has been our practice that we approve all trips. If you'd like to continue that practice, I would recommend we update the policy to say that we approve all trips. The feedback you've given me, if the trips have been like a repeat trip, like a Washington D.C. trip, you don't necessarily need to hear the same presentation again. That's why they weren't here this year. But I just want to make sure that what you want is consistent with what our policies are. So I'm happy to take feedback on that.
Yeah, I think it's something that we should do.
Change the policy.
Change the
Change the
policy.
policy,
Okay. So I will work with our policy committee on that. Should be a simple change, but Brittany and I can work on that and make. I just think it's important the policies reflect what you want
Yeah.
in what we do. I think the board should approve trips, by the way, and we have been, but I want to make sure the policy says that. Right now, it only calls for international trips. So that's helpful to me. Thank you for that.
And then number 2, administrative reports for curriculum operations and the business office. Those are all out there for us to look at. Are there any other board member comments or other reports? Anything anybody want to?
Well, I attended a legislative breakfast at Byron Virgin, gosh, it's probably been a month.
Yeah, that's in January. And John was there too. Yeah.
and found, the comments made by Mr. Hawley were interesting. He tells more stories than he does give us insight, but, you can learn things. And then there was a representative for Mr. Borelli's office, and he was just asking what our, personal needs were for our school districts. And, there are many other school districts that are having a lot worse with foundation aid than we are. So that was eye-opening. And then I went to the legislative, I don't know what it was actually called. It was that Mr. Borelli came and spoke to mostly superintendents, but there were some board members there at Attica Central, which their auditorium is absolutely beautiful. But anyway, he spoke, and it was very informative. A lot of news was there. And I just have to say one thing. There was a superintendent from Perry, Mr. McLaughlin, who made a very impassioned speech about what we have to do as boards of education. And I totally agree that, and I'll just sort of paraphrase what he said, that school districts are certainly, by state and law, we have to educate our children, but he says, in his words, that we're raising children. And that made a really big impact on me, because if you think about all of the services that have occurred over the number of years, we do take care of a lot of kids. We do raise them, we counsel them, we feed them, we clothe them, and we educate them as our main goal. But we do, school districts do an awful lot for families and children. And as a board member, it means a lot that we're able to do that, but it has a great cost to it, and we have to be cognizant of the fact that it costs a lot too. But we are raising children, and that wasn't what our whole goal was as educators in school districts. So his comment meant a lot to me, made me think about what we do.
I agree. I think one thing to keep in mind as we go through this budget process, that, we keep the children in mind. Unfortunately, there's been a local city councilman that has blasted us numerous times recently in his city council meetings.
Apples and oranges.
They are, and, we do a lot for our community. I mean, Julie is here today. I don't know if some of the community members, maybe that councilman himself actually doesn't know the magnitude of what this district does for our community.
Mhm.
So, before publicly blasting us, come on in and sit down with us and let us show you what we actually do for this community.
I agree.
Anything else?
All right, we're going to have a call to go into executive session. We're going to be discussing matters relating to the medical, financial, credit, or employment history for a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. We will not be returning to public session. Could I have a motion, please? Mr. Roll, could I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Regal.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?